Hey, it's Anita, and this is the Anita Posh Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Anita Posh Show, where it is my pleasure to keep you informed about topics related to Bitcoin on a global stage and also the local impact it has on communities and regular people. My guest today is Sunny Ray. Sunny is living in Toronto, Canada, and has Indian roots. He is the co-founder of Unocoin, which is India's largest Bitcoin marketplace, serving 1.5 million people. As always, you can watch this interview on YouTube and listen to it on the go as a podcast. And you can find all the links that lead you to the different versions at anita.link/subscribe. And now a short word from my sponsors and then on to the interview. Enjoy. I definitely recommend using a hardware wallet to store your Bitcoin. But if you have difficulties with the technical requirements and maintenance of hardware wallets, you can use the card wallet. You can give it away as a gift or inheritance. You can send Bitcoin to it, and all you have to do is to store it in a safe place. If you order your card wallet at cardwallet.com/Anita, you will get 20% off. Do you want to stay up to date with the things that happen in Bitcoin from my point of view? Then subscribe to Anita's Weekly, my newsletter with articles, videos, quotes, short tips on how to use Bitcoin and all that for free. Subscribe to Anita's Weekly at anita.link/weekly. Hello, Sunny. Welcome to the Anita Posh Show. Great to have you. Thanks for doing this with me.
Hi, Anita. Yeah, it's nice to reconnect with you. It's a pleasure.
I'm always inspired by your name. I guess it's not your real name, or?
It is. It's actually. It's my name.
What a great name, Sunny Ray. Wow. And are you as a person also like a Sunny Ray?
I'd like to think so. I like to try to live up to my name, just try to be in a good mood whenever I can, but not always. I'm sure my wife might not agree with that one. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's good. It's like a nice icebreaker. I remember one of my first jobs that I ever had, they'd announced my name on the intercom. And I had 3 people come into my office just to verify if that was actually my real name. Really? This is a joke, right? This has to be a joke.
I can imagine that, yeah. So yeah. Can you please tell us a little bit about your roots? I think you live in Canada, but you have quite an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, so my story is so I was born and raised in Canada. My parents are from India, from Calcutta to be specific. And my story is, I think for me it starts with the fact that I was born in Canada, but then we'd visit India kind of every year. We even spent a few years living there when I was younger, and so Canada is probably one of the nicest places I've ever been to, ever visited, ever lived in. It's beautiful on many counts, and India is as well. But there are things about India that are very, very different from Canada. Mainly when you see the level of poverty and that exists there, it's quite striking. And so as a kid, we'd always have this really we'd grow up playing Nintendo and go to school like everyone else, but then for a couple months of the year we'd go to a place that was very, very different. And so I think that helped kind of shape my worldview a bit, that the world isn't just always as rosy as it looks. And there's maybe room for for opportunity and for helping other people. I studied electrical engineering. I don't even know why. I mean, I think I took to math, and maybe, I don't know, as an Indian kid, sometimes there's only a few options really when you think about the future. I didn't like blood, so doctor and that thing was kind of out of the question. After I graduated engineering, in my first few jobs, Anita, I kind of I think like most people, struggled with money. And that was really my first encounter with money. My parents never really did, like allowances and things like that. So I never really had a lot of experience with money, and it was a very, very foreign concept. Never learned about it in school, never really learned about it from anyone. And so when I started working, I started realizing that, after you pay your taxes, you pay your student loan, you pay your bills, you pay your rent, you pay this, you pay that, as a student or as a new kind of employee, you realize that there's more month than money. There's more days left at the end where you're just left kind of twiddling your fingers hoping that maybe you had some more money. And so that got me really questioning things around money and what is money and how does it come to be. And the more questions I had about it, the less satisfied I felt I was with the answers I was getting around me. And so in my evenings and weekends, I decided that I would essentially become like a financial advisor and start my own brokerage and get all my licenses. And that's what I did. And in my evenings and weekends, I built up a practice. And that journey, I mean, without going into too much detail, really left me more confused than answered in terms of my questions. So in before the last big financial crisis, I ended up leaving that space and actually realized that that sales and business development and marketing, and these are things that I knew that long term, if I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I'd have to cultivate. And the best way to learn them, again, wasn't really in school, kind of like money. The best way was just to kind of go out there and hard knock life type of deal. So I took on a role at a company called Quanzer. It was a robotics company. It is a robotics company. I worked there for almost 8 years. And my main role at that company was, again, BD. I helped to kind of build out their North America presence. So I helped outfit a lot of the major robotics labs in North America, Latin America. And then in 2011 or so, the CEO of that company was like, India's obviously growing and there's a big market there, and you look Indian, so why don't you head out there and help us, kind of build and grow our business. And after I think a year or two of living out in India, I'd maybe 6 months after I moved out there, I read the Bitcoin white paper and kind of fell down that rabbit hole. And the rest is history to some extent, but that was really my first exposure to Bitcoin. And I, like many others, I went into like a 6 month hibernation, where my grandmother was living with me at the time, so she was the only person that would kind of hear me talk about it. And when I finally woke out of my slumber, I decided that I wanted to connect with other people, and I actually saw what was happening in Toronto with Anthony Diorio and the meetups, the Bitcoin meetups in Toronto, and I felt like I was missing out every month. I was like, oh, this Bitcoin thing is awesome, I love it, but I can't connect with people, and there was nothing happening in Bangalore at the time. And so I ended up finding some people, and essentially doing the first set of Bitcoin meetups with some other guys in India. And that was really, our first kind of, and again, at the time, we were all convinced that we wanted to do something in Bitcoin, but we just didn't know where the opportunity was. And yeah, I'd say that was kind of like the start of our Bitcoin journey. But that's a bit about my, kind of backstory, I guess, before getting into Bitcoin.
Yeah, but what was so interesting for you that you knew you wanted to work in that space or spend time with the people who are also interested in it? What did you see? I mean, did you have a vision that came to mind, or did you have something like that might help also? I guess you also have family in India.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, Jeff Bezos has this like a thing that he talks about. It's called regret minimization. So when he was at the beginning of his career, and he was like, should I leave my comfortable job to, try and do a startup? He didn't just think about like, oh, what if I fail? He thought, oh, when I'm 80, and I think back, and am I gonna, I want to minimize the regret that I have at that age, and so I want to take as many chances and do as many things as I can. So that was something that had settled in. And then also, Anita, because I studied electrical engineering, in university, I actually had some friends of mine, really close friends of mine, who had started internet businesses. So this is like 20 years ago. They had started internet businesses while I was in engineering, and they said, Sonny, just drop out of school, come join us, come into the basement here with us in our parents' basement, and we'll go build a business. And I said, I hope my parents say that I'm not allowed to do that because that sounds super scary and weird. And I didn't. I did the normal thing. I studied engineering and watched my close friends build a company and almost set themselves, probably not almost, set themselves financially free by the time I was finished university. So that was my first, probably, aside from also seeing, my grandparents and my family run businesses, that was my first really kind of close exposure to someone, like friends, the people that I played frisbee with and, hung out with, actually making millions. And so the internet thing kind of passed me by. The mobile thing, I remember sitting in engineering class, my friends having Blackberries, and just us thinking about them and being, wow, this is super cool, but never really clicked that we could do something, that we had the tools right in front of us to build whatever we wanted. Missed that opportunity, and then Bitcoin was really, for me, was like there's a lot of big things in the world, right? Politics, religion. We talk about all these things in our last podcast, but none other than money. Right? In the sense that I know it's like kind of taboo to talk about it, right? When you talk at a dinner table, it's like people don't like talking about money. But if you're in the middle of a party, you just say money, everybody will turn around and look over. And it's just like one of those, if you talk to your grandmother who's 90 years old, or your kid who's 2, or anyone in between, or any language or any country or anything, everyone cares about money. Yet when you ask them, what is money? What is this thing that you're getting into divorces for, that you get into world wars for, that you wake up early in the morning and go to sleep late at night, that you go to school for 20 years? What is this thing? And to this day, almost nobody, aside from Bitcoiners, obviously, has been able to answer that question. So I find that fascinating. And to me, that's like the kind of contrarian belief or contrarian thought that's sitting right there in front of all of our faces, right? Money. Yet none of us even question what it is or how it came to be. And and so I felt like my quest for trying to understand money kind of came to a bit of a conclusion when I read that white paper. It felt like to me that, whoa, like this is the marriage of the internet and this idea, the best form of money that we could ever imagine, based on Austrian economics. And, and for me too, while I was in the financial industry, I remember the Occupy Wall Street thing was happening. And I never identified with what they were proposing as a solution, right? But the problems that they were talking about resonated with me at the time, because I was like, maybe something is wrong with the monetary system and the financial system. And I didn't know what, maybe, right? And I remember on a YouTube video that I was watching of the movement where someone came on and was like, Ron Paul, you need to learn about Ron Paul. And I learned about him so much so that I was standing, actually I met him way later, but at that time I went to one of his rallies and was really, really into just thought, if Ron Paul could just win, the world will be better. And anyway, so through a sequence of kind of learnings, you could say, I finally came to the conclusion that, for me at least, that politics will never solve our fundamental problems. And at the end of the day, it'll be code. It'll be just humans, peaceful humans, like just interacting and commercing with one another that'll solve these big problems. So Bitcoin was just like, it was like the skies partying, angels, it was amazing. I just couldn't have enough of it. And what I did know, I knew I wanted to do something in the space, Anita. I didn't know what it was going to be. But I knew that if I was going to build anything, I needed to be around people, right? Because, that's how businesses are built. It's not just like lone rangers, like just coding and building and doing this. And it's like you need people, of which I didn't have a lot of in India. But I also knew that all my close friends were really, I love sports, I like playing sports, but I hate watching, unless it's UFC. I hate watching sports. I find it super boring, but all my friends are just into watching sports. So I realized that if I just keep hanging out with people that are talking about baseball and basketball, I'm never gonna move anywhere in Bitcoin. I gotta be all in. So my first item of agenda was to surround myself with people that are just as obsessed with me about Bitcoin. And that was my foray. That's why I kind of saw what I was missing in Toronto and scratched that itch by starting, these meetups in India. And I think like Benson, these other guys, they kind of got to the party a bit before me, and then they handed it all over to me and said, look, just run with it. You're obviously, really passionate about it. And I think every 2 weeks, and we did them a little bit differently too. And by the way, Anita, I know you want to spend more time on the RBI stuff, so I'm kind of maybe taking too much time on my backstory. But anyway, so
no, it's interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot to it, but yeah, I think Bitcoin in general, to me, I saw a massive opportunity, but I also knew that I needed people around me, and I also knew that it wasn't going to be easy, and we also knew that we had to be scientific about our approach and not like emotional about it. And I think a lot of people, they get really emotional, like their business or whatever it is that they create or build, it's like it's them, it represents them. And so we just said, okay, let's run experiments. Let's run 100 experiments. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so you basically were looking for a business opportunity in the big Bitcoin space in India. So with the people at your Bitcoin meetups, you got to know people. So how did Unocoin then come to existence?
That's a good question. So Unocoin was originally just a website that I acquired. So my wife is from Colombia, so I've been learning Spanish for 10 years. I'm kind of stuck at 500 words. I'm terrible at it. But anyways, one of the words that I know is one, which is uno. And I always felt like Bitcoin, when I heard about it, was kind of like the one. It was the one that was going to change the world, I felt. And so I started Unocoin really initially with the hopes to serve my meetups and my events. So it was just a website where people could come and learn about Bitcoin. It was just anything I would learn. People would be asking me questions at these events. I'd come home, answer those questions like in person, and then come home and put it on the website. So it was really just a blog, but it was getting a lot of traction and love, and people were coming to it. But then it hit us. We're like, wait, but people keep asking us, where do you buy it? And we send them on these like quagmire like trips down the road. Oh, wire here, you wait 2 weeks, and then you got to do jumping jacks. And it's like, okay, well, why don't we just like scratch our own itch? And it was really after maybe 8 or 10 other things that we tried. We tried physical Bitcoins. We ran a Bitcoin mining operation. We did many things. We did conferences, like a massive, conference. We just have an idea. Let's try it. Okay, we're going to lose money. It's okay. We're going to lose time. We're going to lose face. It doesn't matter. Like, we're going to just do it. We're going to do it. And that was kind of the spirit. And we just, and so Unocoin initially was just an information. And then, in 2013, Anita, one day I was actually in a conversation with a guy named David Johnston, who's one of the founders of Mastercoin, and anyway, so a pioneer in the Bitcoin space. I was talking to him on a Skype call, and he was the one that initially I think planted the idea in my head. He said, "Sunny, like, is there an easy way to buy Bitcoin in India?" And I showed him kind of like the websites that were like just like a really, really just one-page simple thing with a cartoon figure. It was just like no ID, no platform, no wallet. It was great. It worked, but there was nothing there that we thought could be, like a long-term platform for Bitcoin. And that was where the opportunity came up. And so what we did is we took that website, took everything off of it, obviously, and rebuilt Satvik, rather. So one of the people that I met through my meetups was a guy named Satvik, who I smile because I love him. He's like my brother from another mother. And Satvik is the CEO of Unocoin, and him and I are joined at the hip, virtually, I guess you could say. And Satvik really is like, the relation between us is I have a lot of ideas, I have a lot of networks and connections, and Satvik just has a lot of execution power. Like he's an MBA, he's an engineer, he's just very resourceful, he's very smart, and he just knows how to get stuff done. And so between the two of us, we, if I was like, hey, let's do a conference, I'd be like, let's delay it by 3 months, let's delay it by 6 months. Satvik would be like, no, let's do it next month. Let's do it. And he would just always do it. And so eventually we said, okay, let's just rebuild Unocoin. Let's build something like Coinbase, something that's, like secure, something that's safe, something that has, like solid investors behind it, something that has, that can scale, that can, serve, billions of people, and that can kind of bridge that gap between Bitcoin and the masses. And so that was really the beginning of our journey.
Okay, when was that? When did you found
And then we finally
Unocoin?
so we came up with the idea mid 2013, and then by the end of 2013, December 2013, we launched Unocoin at a conference called the Global Bitcoin Conference that we hosted in Bangalore. And so it was like a, I don't know, 600, 700 person conference, and it was not my idea, but a couple of the other guys that did the conference with me, they decided that, look, like, Bitcoin, it's inevitable that it's going to be massive. So we'll invite everybody. We'll invite, competitors, entrepreneurs. Like, we don't see, like, I never see Bitcoin like entrepreneurs as competitors. Like, I do at one level, I guess, but ultimately I see them as like collaborators, as like, friends, right? Because we're all kind of doing the same thing. So we invited them, we invited reporters, we invited, professors, like everybody. We even invited, regulators too, right? And to our surprise, the RBI actually did show up. And they had been, I guess, watching the space and was a bit confused by it. And I've shared this story in other podcasts, but it was kind of interesting because, and the RBI, by the way, for those maybe of your guests who don't know, is the Reserve Bank of India. And they're the central bank. And so a gentleman from the RBI came, and right at the beginning of the conference, somebody came up to me and said, Sunny, somebody wants to speak to you. They're from the RBI. I said, oh, it's great. I walked up to him and he said, look, are you one of the organizers? I said, I think so. He said, yeah. He's like, if anyone even mentions that I'm here, I'm simply going to stand up and walk out. And so that was my introduction to the RBI. I said, enjoy your samosas, and yeah, I won't mention anything. So anyway, so that was the beginning. And then a week after that, there was a notice put on their website saying Bitcoins are volatile, Bitcoins have security risks, and we just warn the general public against using them, or it was no ban or nothing like that. It was just like an advisory notice, and really that was kind of our welcome into the Bitcoin scene.
And that was 2014 or what? So
2013, December 2013.
13, yeah, okay. And I mean, let's talk a little bit about India. I mean, India is huge. I mean, you have a huge market there. I think 1.4 billion people or something like that. Which
for.
Yeah, because you don't really know, huh?
Yeah, who knows?
And can you tell us a little bit about the use cases? I mean, what do people use Bitcoin for in India?
Well, I was going to say, so, I mean, like, I'll definitely go into the use case, Anita, about, if you don't mind, I wanted to also just kind of level set on why, at least I have been bullish on India, and I think I have a unique view. I know some people are probably listening, they're like, oh, this guy's not even Indian, he just looks Indian. He's from Canada, but I think it's interesting because I was raised kind of outside of India and spent like years in India and living in India and whatnot, and as an adult even having spent time there. I feel like that gives me a unique view because I can like literally take India, put it up against the rest of the world, and kind of look at where the opportunities might be and whatnot. Anyways, so I've always felt that. So for number one, gold. So gold is massive. Like, I mean, my parents, my mom, obviously, everybody loves gold. And so I think that the fact that Bitcoin is digital gold, without going into like kind of too much detail about that, if you want we can, but I think the fact that it lends itself towards that narrative, like, okay, who what country loves gold more than India? I can't find many. And so I think that is awesome. And then if you look at the fact that it's digital gold, means that obviously if you have a population that is more digitally savvy, if you have more programmers that live in your country, then you have maybe more people to kind of be early adopters, because it is obviously a bit scary for like brand new people. And even though companies have made it easy to kind of get Bitcoin and get exposure, we think that the fact that there's a lot of people who can literally look at the white paper and the code base and make their own educated decision is fascinating. And so digital gold, that narrative is front and center. And I would say if I had to find a use case or whatever it is, that is kind of the one. Yeah. Second, if I had to pick a second, distant second maybe, is remittance. So you hear a lot about, how remittance is, Bitcoin's going to disrupt remittance. I know it hasn't yet. I mean, there's this new company called, I think, Global Strike. I keep hearing about this guy, and I've actually worked for a company called Buttercoin. In fact, I didn't even mention that as a part of my story. But before I went full time with Unocoin in December or mid 2013, Anita, I actually, in organizing that event, I ended up meeting the CEO of a company called Buttercoin out of Silicon Valley. And they were backed by Google Ventures, that come out of Y Combinator, and they had actually they offered me a job, and I ended up accepting it in mid 2013 as their head of business development. So I worked for them for almost a year, and during that time, I'll be honest, Unocoin, I didn't think anything would come of it, because everything we'd tried prior to that had failed miserably. I had no reason to believe that this would work, but not failed, but like nothing had kind of popped, if you will. And here I thought, I'm working for a Google-backed company. I mean, this company's definitely going to kill it versus like whatever has been happening here. And to my surprise, Satvik surprised me and built not only the platform in less than a few months, but started onboarding users, started getting profitable, revenue positive, and all just kind of organically and very, very interestingly. Anyway, so I've had a lot of kind of detours along the way, Anita. I don't know if I'm kind of maybe going off track. I'll let you bring us back home here, but yeah.
So you say the place like India is made for Bitcoin in a way because people love gold, so they'll know that it's a long-term store of value.
Yep.
You have a lot of developers in the country. I mean, India is known for the many people working as a developer or any other like these virtual assistants and all this stuff. And also for remittances, of course, because if you have developers in the country working for people abroad, then they can be paid in Bitcoin, right?
100%. In fact, that is the case. And that was always something. I remember I was talking to a guy named Tony Galippi, the founder of BitPay, way back in the day. And he was like, he told us, like, look, like the developers, like there's a lot of them, and you want to make sure you cater to them. And so one thing we learned really early on, because I was kind of touching on the remittance point, that's like I went off on a tangent with Buttercoin, but the remittance thing, so, we started noticing that way back in the day, a lot of our users would come to us and say, hey, look, when I use other remittance platforms, I won't name them, right? I'm sure people know who they are. When I use these other platforms and I, let's say, get $1,000 sent from the United States or from San Francisco or whatever from my counterpart, I will get $900 or I'll get $920. And it'll take a week for me to get the money. But when I use Bitcoin, when I use Unocoin, when I use this service, it's obviously like I get all the money, I get it right away, and it's way faster, way cheaper. Like, what's going on? This is awesome. And so one of the things we started doing is we started going, well, if people are kind of looking at that as a use case, why don't we make it a little bit easier for them? And why don't we give them like an auto sell function? Because the only complaint we would get is people would say, well, if at nighttime, I get paid, I wake up in the morning and the price of Bitcoin went down 5%. So I lost 5%. So we said, okay, why don't we introduce like an auto sell, make it so that as soon as Bitcoin hits your wallet, we just auto sell it and send the money to your bank account. So now, and you never need to log in again. You just set it up once and it's done. And that was tens of thousands of users just use that one tiny functionality, which again is kind of on that remittance thing. And we think there's an opportunity to make remittance easier, more friendly, and I'm specifically very passionate about remittance, mainly because, people talk about like foreign aid, like, oh, governments dumping money in poor countries and, oh, it's going to help the world. And it does. But I actually believe that things like remittance are actually far more effective. And if you can make remittance cheaper, you can help people more because of one simple fact. Who knows better the needs of, let's say, a group of people, a government, or like your son or your mom or someone, right? So I'm a big fan of trying to figure out how to make remittance cheaper and faster and better because, like I said, I grew up seeing my parents send money back home my whole life, and that's like a problem set that I think is exciting. So I would say those are the two that I am very, very passionate about. But I mean, now 10 years in, I mean, you could say everything could be rebuilt on top of Bitcoin to some extent, right? I mean, those are the two that I think have been front and center, but you're starting to see, obviously, decentralization being more important.
And are you going to also facilitate the Lightning Network for your platform? So, yeah, to
Yeah,
enable
we're working
smaller
on some
payments?
stuff. Yeah, we haven't yet, mainly because, I guess we haven't gotten to the story yet of what actually happened in India, right? Because 2 years ago, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. But yeah, anyways, when we go into that, you'll know. But the company was in a bit of a rut, if you will, for almost 2 years, and we kind of climbed out of that just a couple months ago. And so, but yeah, Lightning Network integration is definitely top of mind.
Okay, understand. Okay, yeah. So, how many people have you served now, or how many customers have you had, or do you have at the moment? Can you
I
say
think we're
that?
like 1.7 million or something like that users, so almost 2 million. At our peak, I think we were onboarding maybe 10, 15,000 users a day. This was in like the 2017 kind of rush.
And what do you see now? I mean, what have you seen in 2020? A rise in users? How has it been?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I was gonna say, Anita, would it make sense to actually share the backstory so people have a bit more
Yes,
context? So then maybe
sure.
I can. But I mean, just to answer your question though, I don't want to not answer them. Yeah, it's been phenomenal, obviously, and just to give some context, by the way, we use other platforms as well. I just use Alexa just because like most people know about it, but we were like I think the 100,000th website on the internet, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and now this morning I checked, we were like 47,000. What? Like we went
Wow.
from 100,000 to 47,000 in 2 months. To me, that's miraculous. It's not as good as, the other big companies out there, but that is, you got to celebrate your wins. And so every day we're climbing almost 1,000 positions on the internet. We're amongst the maybe top 3,000 websites in India, maybe 3,500 websites in India. So things are going really good. We're back in business. Tim Draper just invested in us. We won the court case, which I'll end up maybe talking about later. I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, I'm okay with that too. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that as a main point and ask you
Please.
now, because I just wanted to show or to ask you if there also has an uptick in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin usage in India as well as it also has been in Africa, for instance. So yes, it has.
Yeah, it's picking
Great.
up big time.
Good to know.
100%.
And so now the backstory from Unocoin. You told me you were like shut down or sued by the
Our
Royal
bank.
Bank or something like that. Please tell us that story.
Yeah, so I kind of alluded, I foreshadowed it earlier with my encounter with the gentleman from RBI in 2013, but that notice that I mentioned kind of resurfaced itself on their website, a few times over the course of, almost 7 or 8 years. And then and again, there's a lot of details and nuances, and there's like a 200-page like PDF and Supreme Court this, that. People can read about it, right? But I'm just kind of glossing over a lot of the finer details because it'll take forever. But essentially, when things got, I guess, in December 2017 or around 2017 time frame, long story short, the central bank decided to elevate kind of its position on Bitcoin and decided to not just put a notice out there, but also to issue a notice on their website prohibiting all of the banks in India that are under their jurisdiction, which is all of them almost, to deal with Bitcoin companies such as Unocoin. That was kind of so it wasn't really a Bitcoin ban. It wasn't really a lawsuit. It was a them telling their banks that they cannot deal with crypto companies. And that was obviously, I laugh about it now, but that was obviously devastating. Anita, it was heart-wrenching. There's a little bit of a backstory there. So at Unocoin, okay, like on a personal note, maybe I'll just share some of my thoughts. So I obviously, in the face of this notice, we saw it coming, we knew it was coming, and so my initial gut reaction was to say, hey, let's build something that is like P2P, something like local Bitcoins. Have you ever used local Bitcoins or or any of these platforms? So our instinct was, well, if they're gonna shut down central bank, like if the central bank is going to prohibit centralized exchanges from servicing our customers, then the obvious next step is to allow our customers, 2 million of them or 1.7 million of them, to interact between one another. Like, that's from a first principles perspective. Like, that's if we were all in a room together, and if I'm the one that's like, hey, you just create a way for everyone to connect, like, directly. Like, that just makes sense. However, due to my bunch of reasons, we decided not to go that way. Legal feedback, this, that. Some of our other founders didn't really want to go that way. And so these other guys, our co-founders, decided, and with our lawyers, decided that look, okay, there's this bank ban. We're not allowed to use our bank account for servicing customers. Until we, and by the way, in the meantime, what happened is it's a bit convoluted, but we ended up essentially taking them to the court over this notice. And by we, I mean like the community at large. So we all came, so Unocoin and some of the other Bitcoin companies came. So a lot of them actually just fled, and that should be noted. When things got really tough, most of them just disappeared. Okay, and one of the reasons I'm making a lot of noise lately on the internet is to not to be hard on those people, but to let the world know that some people stood up. I'm not saying it's me, even it was more like my co-founders. Some people stood up and some people ran. So don't be the runner. Is my main message. But we did go through a lot. So anyway, so our guys had determined that if we're going to service our customers, if we're not going to go the P2P route, well, maybe we could launch some Bitcoin kiosks. So just machines that would enable our customers to come and get their Bitcoin with cash, and we would do KYC on them so that if something nefarious happened, we could still work with law enforcement. We just wanted to make sure that people could get their Bitcoin. Like, that was our main intention. So we launched our machine in a mall. Not launched, sorry, let me take that back. We just put our machine in a mall. It was about 2 weeks away from launch, and that's very important because it wasn't even operational for anyone that's maybe even thinking, oh, something we do. Anyway, so it wasn't even operational. Somebody saw it, some random person saw it, took a picture of it. It went viral on the internet, and when I say viral, I've never seen anything go as viral as that. It was just like, what? This bank ban, but now Unocoin is launching an ATM machine. It went insane. The news picked it up, and then I think 40 or 50 reporters swarmed this tiny mall owner's office. It was just like mayhem. One thing led to another, and essentially the police finally thought, okay, well, something must not be right, and decided to come and take away the ATM machine and my two co-founders for a day. And when then were eventually let go because there was no reason to hold them because our machine wasn't even operational, and even if it was, there's nothing wrong with it. But because of all the confusion and everything that had happened, and I shared this story mainly because if I now fast forward to this court case, which kind of concluded earlier this year in March, there's, like I said, there's actually 5 kind of key points that the court case was fought on, and I don't want to overshadow those points. Those points were important, and some of those points include things like, the severity of the notice and the effects of it. Weren't properly explored. They didn't look at kind of international cases of what's happening around the world before they introduced this bank ban, and so on and so on. There's about 4 or 5 reasons, and our lawyers obviously did a really good job of addressing all those major points and showing the judges that they were unfounded. However, the anecdotal part that I like to share that doesn't get covered, as much, is the fact that all three judges at one point near the end of the court case said, okay, great, like you guys are saying, like us as the Bitcoin community, you guys are saying that this is unconstitutional, that this bank ban is but the Constitution applies to people, not necessarily companies or like these formations of companies or these organizations. It's like, show us an example of where an individual's life was impacted. And it was literally Harish, our co-founder, who was on the stand and was our lawyers, who've been our lawyers since 2013, that were fighting this. And the fact that we had to lay off, 100 people a year before, the fact that Harish's livelihood was impacted and all of ours were, the fact that the wrongful arrests, the taking away of our, our ATM machines, and on and on and on, all these things, eventually led all three, judges to decide that this bank ban was unconstitutional, and it was overturned. And the next day, it was a Saturday, the bankers were at Satvik's house, getting us back online and ready to go, because our bank has no problems with us. They like us. They like making money. It's the central bank that was always, against us. And the second reason I'm also kind of coming on the mic and trying to get more people excited is that this is not the end, right? Like, meaning there's probably way more bigger challenges coming, and it's up to us to kind of, stand up and fight. And I would say what happened, like even a year ago, if you would have asked me, because a year ago it was like we're maybe a month away from the decision or 2 months away. If you would have said, Sunny, what are the odds that, you think that Unocoin will actually come out alive? I mean, I was literally working for Kraken. I'd left the project, meaning I would have said like a negative 50% chance. I mean, we have a scrappy startup that we started 7 years ago against the people who print money. And we have words that tell us that they want to get rid of our industry. We're not going to win. Like, the chances of us winning are almost nil. When we launched Unocoin in December 2013, right after Christmas, right after that event, I flew to Colombia to visit my wife's family, and a week or two later, shit hit the fan, and that notice that I mentioned came out. We had 30 people from the tax department at our 4-person startup, like at our front door, coming and asking us a million questions, and I saw all this. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie, I called Satvik. I said, Satvik, let's hang up our gloves. Like, we don't need to be doing this. Like, go back to your virtual reality business. I'll go back to my robotics or Bitcoin, whatever I'll do. And let's just, let's call it a day. And Satvik's like, Sunny, you're Canadian. If I shut this thing down, like, you're probably going to go start some other business, go work somewhere else. But he's like, but if I give up on Bitcoin today, after not having done anything wrong, like, we're doing everything right, he's like, then my entire country will lose out on Bitcoin. And I really, to this day, think that Satvik's like courage is one of the main reasons that Bitcoin exists in India today. And so, yeah, congratulations to him.
Yeah, really, congratulations to him, because you all put yourself into high risk, and I guess it also costs you a lot of money to fight this court case.
Of course. And by the way, who I didn't thank, the two like massive groups of people are, Unocoin is lucky in a way where, I think more recently this year you saw some pretty notable investors enter India. But prior to this year, I don't think I can name any other company in India that's still alive that was backed by people like Barry Silbert. I told you at the beginning of my Unocoin journey, I worked for another company called Buttercoin. It was when I left, Barry invested in Unocoin. Think about that. Barry believed in the company I started before I did. So obviously guys like Barry Silbert have, they're not really noisy and they don't try and take credit, but these are the people that, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be where we are. And then Tim Draper, a couple months ago, invested in us. Adam Draper has been a believer and supporter of us in a long time. Max Kaiser, so our investors, we have like amazing investors, and we purposefully chose our investors. We chose crazy people. Like, we chose people that if the Bitcoin price goes down, 50%, 70% or something, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to call us and freak us out. Oh, you guys made a mistake. No, they get it. They get that this thing's here for the long run. So yeah, so for us, so that's one. And then the last group, and probably the group that deserves the most amount of thanks, more than Sapfik, more than even our investors, is our customers, right? Like, we have millions of customers that have been buying and selling crypto. And by the way, they should be, if they bought and held, a lot of them should be pretty good right now. But, you know, them buying or selling for, you know, to meet their livelihood. I mean, that is what feeds our business. That's what's enabled us to stay alive and serve and, you know, fight and do everything. So, yeah.
And is this ban like taken away for a lifetime now? I mean, will there never be a ban again?
So I don't want to use the word ban, because there actually is an actual Bitcoin ban in the horizon in India that hopefully won't happen, right? But again, a ban is like where the country and the government and all the people say, hey, we don't want Bitcoin, like, ever, and if you even talk about it, like, you're banned. Like, that's what I think of a ban. What happened to us was very targeted. It was literally the central bank saying, we don't want the banks dealing with cryptocurrency companies. Like, that was really what happened. So what happened, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not, like, you know, a political expert, but from what I understand, the likelihood of that happening again, probably not too high, just because they would have to have a very strong precedent. And, you know, I mean, and by the way, Anita, this was the second time in history that the Supreme Court overruled the central bank. Second time in history. I mean, this is unprecedented. Like, this doesn't happen, right? I mean, you should have, when the movie is made, you will see. I mean, the attitude of the central bankers. Well, I don't know. Maybe if there's a producer that hears this, maybe they'll pick it up. Yeah, I talk about it as if the movie's going to happen for sure, but no, I don't have an actual movie, but there will be a movie.
There will be one,
but like, the attitude of the central bankers, even I remember early on in the court case, was like, pretty much to the Supreme Court judges, like, the people was, who are you to tell us what to do? Like, okay, shots fired. Anyway, so yeah, it's been an adventure and a half, and you know, and for almost 2 years we were buried. Like, our company was nothing, right? And so we didn't talk much. We were just kind of whatever. And so ever since, you know, this has turned around and Unocoin's now, like, back, I guess you could say. I've been almost every day you see me on the internet, you know, making a fool out of myself.
So I guess this event or this court case, as you said it also before, it influenced yourself in a way, I guess, because you had this journey, like, you had to take on another job, you had to pay a lot for this court case. And your message, as I understand it, is there will be more obstacles like this for the use of Bitcoin in the world, because they want to regulate it even more. And your message is, like...
My message is, well, I mean, okay, so one of my favorite quotes is by a guy named Vinod Khosla. It's that success matters, failure is inconsequential. So success matters, failure is inconsequential. So, yeah. So that's probably one of my favorite quotes, just because, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm 80, I'm going to have failed maybe 1 million times, but as long as I've got like 3 or 4 like, big wins, that's all that really matters. Whereas most people, in hopes of not failing, you know, hundreds of times, people won't even put themselves in a position to win big a couple times. So I think success matters, failure is inconsequential is probably one of my favorite quotes. And then the other one is, you know, it's like entrepreneurship. I think Elon Musk said this, is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. So you want to do this? You got to really, really love and believe whatever you're going. And I really, really believe in Bitcoin. I mean, we would not. I could be making, like, having way better jobs, making way more money, but we chose this path. It's higher. It's risky, but again, you know, for us, it's like, it's risky to not do this, if that makes any sense. You know, it's like, it's riskier for the world, for us, just for my kids. So my message is, yeah, just, you know, one life to live, like, go make it happen, you know, same as everyone else. I really believe that I think one of my biggest, pet peeves is that, I think people think that all you need is like money and intelligence to win. I think the thing that most people, or I overlook as well, is courage. And so find courageous co-founders, if that's my final message. I don't know, or build it up yourself. But yeah, build on Bitcoin, and now everyone's talking about all-time highs, getting rich, this, that. That's all good, but Bitcoin allows you, Lanita's got lots of amazing material, and, Andreas and the whole world's there's like so much material out there. It's really up to you to go out there and kind of learn it and find your place in it. And I think these things like, podcasts, events, Anita, these are amazing because these are the kind of things that, enable people to kind of get onboarded, to learn, to connect with others. And so I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing. And yeah, it's been a pretty fun experience.
Yeah, thank you very much. And what do you see for the future of Bitcoin, like in the next year or in the next years? And also, what are the plans for Unocoin?
So in terms of Bitcoin, I try not to make price predictions. Excuse me, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, But there's a guy named Crypto Picasso on Twitter who I recently came across on Clubhouse, actually. And there's something with Bitcoin that is like, okay, my general suggestion to everyone out there is just dollar cost average, buy it, hold, don't worry about timing the market. But I do think that after having been in the space for so long, that there are patterns. If you look at the charts and you look at the numbers, like Bitcoin is an organism, and Bitcoin is, it's subject to a lot of really, really interesting phenomena. So long story short, I think that we're in a bull market. I think the bull market will potentially take us to 10x where we are right now, and then subsequent to that bull market, there will be a catastrophic crash that will bring us down to levels maybe twice or where we're at now, and they will maybe remain around there for a couple of years, and then the cycle will again repeat itself from 2023 to 2026. And so, I mean, that's kind of my high level thing of where I think Bitcoin is going. Unocoin, yeah, we're just super excited. Look, our app, like Android, like people are obviously using it, and it's come back. We've got, we're doing a lot of things to make our user experience way better. We've got a lot of things. I mean, generally, we never talk about stuff that we're going to be doing in the future at Unocoin, just as like we just don't. We try and once it's done and it's like ready to go, then we talk about it, just because, you know what I mean? It's like under promise, over deliver. I don't know what the saying is, but I hate it when it's like we say, oh, we're going to do this, and people are like, oh, you said you're going to do it, but you didn't. But it's like, okay, just don't say it. But our goal is, bring Bitcoin to billions. What I will say is that with what happened to us in India, we took the path of challenging the central bank in court. And I think, for us, I think that was the right path. There are other companies that took a different path, and there are companies that built P2P platforms, and that have done a good job. I would say a good job at addressing what may have been an existential threat to Bitcoin in India. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about, how do we fight the next court case? But instead, how do we build technology that is, that's just more robust, that's more resilient, that is like Bitcoin, right? Like a centralized exchange is not like Bitcoin. It's like almost the complete opposite. So how do we decentralize, our efforts, our job, our company, our service? How do we make it so that if something bad happens again in the future, we don't skip a beat? So I'd say that maybe I'll kind of stop there, but that should give people a pretty good idea of kind of the different things we're looking at. And and I don't know if I mentioned, I did mention, so I did, so Yeah, I mean, I've worked for companies in the Valley and North America, so I kind of have a pretty good pulse on what's happening, whether it's like derivatives, and I'm from Toronto, so I've known the Vitaliks and Ethereum people way before they even launch Ethereum type of deals. I feel like I've got my ear on the pulse, but yeah, but we'll see how things pan out. You never know.
Great, thank you. So thanks for this interesting discussion and chat we had. Can you tell our listeners, please, where they can find you and follow your work?
Yeah, and Anita, thanks again for giving me this opportunity. This was really fun. So where can people so
Like your
Unocoin
website
is
or Twitter?
yeah, Unocoin.com is
Sorry.
just kind of where they can, so UNOCOIN, Unocoin.com is where they can get links to Android and iOS. And then I'm also a part of a project called Paycase.com in Canada, which we've been at for a long time, and it's essentially just an OTC desk here in Canada, so people can, if they're in Canada, they can check that out. India, it's Unocoin. And then just on a personal note, sunnyray.com. I've been just kind of putting stuff up there more just for fun, and just trying to capture some of, like, before we actually make that movie, I figured, well, I'll just take a stab at it and put whatever I can up there. And so I've been capturing a lot of my thoughts and just general banter on sunnyray.com. And then, as you know, Anita, I'm doing a similar podcast thing in terms of interviewing people. I'm on episode 71, and people can get to that by just, again, I think buildingonbitcoin.com. Yeah, that should take them there. So I've been just interviewing people and releasing an interview every day, just trying to, get the word out.
Yeah, every day is quite a pace, yeah. Quite a good pace. Great. Okay, I will put all those links in the show notes. Thank you very much again. It was great to have you on, and also to be a guest in your show. Thanks for that too.
That was awesome.
And yeah, I hope that in 2021 or latest 2022, I can meet you in person.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I know. I was saying as we got to do events, physical, like in-person events, I think are going to be ginormous once they're back. So looking forward to it. Thank you, Anita.
Yes, great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining the Anita Posch Show today to learn more about Bitcoin. You can find the show notes for this conversation on anita.link/show. If you want to get the best stories in Bitcoin from my point of view in your mailbox, go to anita.link/weekly and subscribe. And if you have a question or just want to send me some feedback, drop me a line at hello@anitaposch.com. See you next week when it's time for the Anita Posch Show. Music, start with yes, delicate beats. Content, idea and production, Anita Posch.